Bonner again. Everyone wants the ability to improvise fluently over chord changes that are happening in the jam or whatever. We want to avoid random noodling using tired pentatonic riffs and replaying the same thing we use all the time, but we want to play with fluency and sound like we know where we're going and that we have something to say musically. It's actually not that mysterious, it's just not very frequently taught. I'm going to show you right now. This is the first in a series of how to practice playing over the changes. So I'm not going to drill down too deep into all of the underlying foundation skill. I'm going to talk about it very, very briefly in passing. The main thing we're going to focus on is what is a routine to practice doing this so that this ability becomes second nature. So let's talk about these underpinnings that I'm talking about. The first thing you need to know is there are 5 chord shapes in the caged chord system. There are 5 chord shapes of the caged system. 5 chord shapes of the caged system. C, A, G, E, and D. Okay? Item number 2, that's a part of item number 1, is each of these chord shapes is movable. Okay? They can be played anywhere on the neck, and it changes what chord you're playing. So for example, if I play a C here, that's the C shape. If I move that same shape over here, and the 1 is on E here, or here, that's also a C shape, but now I'm playing the E chord. Item number 3 is inextricably connected to the 5 chord shapes. There are 5 scale outlines that correspond to that. And a component of these 5 chord shapes is just as we can move the chords around to any location, we can also move the scales around to any location. Here's the E form major scale, but I'm going to play that major scale in the key of G so you can see all the notes. Here's the root note, and here's the whole pattern. Okay, that's the major scale being played in the E form. But I can take that exact same form and I can play it up here in the key of C. Okay, so the scale patterns can be moved around. Now here's the linchpin that holds this stuff together. The reason why there's a scale shape underneath each chord shape is because when we're playing melody, the notes we are playing are part of the chord that's being played at that time. In classical music, you would write the melody first, and then you would harmonize it and thereby create chords. When we're jamming in rock and blues, usually the chord is created first, and we need to identify the most appropriate melody notes to get the sound that we want. But those notes are part of the chord, and that's what we're going to look at how to use today. Item 6 is when we're playing a chord, it's helpful to us to take the attitude that the chord we are playing is actually the key signature for melody that's happening at that moment. When we're playing lead, we play in the key of the chord that's going by. The final piece is that the caged scale shapes, those 5 chord shapes, provide us with a layout for every scale type. In other words, we have the layout on here for the major scale, the minor scale, the Lydian scale, the pentatonic scale, the hexatonic scale. We can find all of these scales or any of these scales in the 5 caged shapes. So you really only have to learn 5 layouts and those 5 layouts can be used to define any of these scales, major, pentatonic, whatever you like. Just as we can use the caged scale shapes of the major scale, we can also use the caged scale shapes of the pentatonic scale or any scale that we're playing with. So in this particular example, we're using the pentatonic scale, and we're going to use an A shape chord for our 1 chord in our blues jam, and the corresponding scale, pentatonic minor scale, that goes with that is the one you already know that you probably call the A pentatonic. It's really the E form pentatonic, but anyway, it's this shape. Okay, and we're also going to use an A form chord. So here's an A7 here, but we're going to play a D7 by moving that chord up here. And you've probably played this in your rock and roll, that A-shaped barred chord. We're going to play it like this, and we're going to use the pentatonic scale that corresponds to that A shape, and that is this here. That's the pentatonic scale in the key of D being played in the shape of an A chord. And then the third chord that we're going to use in our song is the 5 chord, which will be an E7 played in this C shape. And we're going to play using the C-shaped pentatonic scale, which is this. Okay? Those are the 3 forms of the pentatonic scale that we will be using in this jam. When we use these 3 shapes of the pentatonic scale in our jam, what it allows us to do is to play in the key of A, and to play in the key of D, and to play in the key of E. All in the same place on our neck. And this is the level of fluency that you have to have if you really want to be able to play over the changes. Okay, so for today, we're just going to play a 1-5-4 in A, because that's easy for us to do. Here's the, we're going to play the 1 chord here, like this. We're going to play the 4 chord like this. And we're going to play the 5 chord in this E7 shape or C7 shape. Okay, so here's the idea that we're using for jamming over 3 chords in one position. We're going to use the pentatonic minor scale that matches this shape. This is the shape that you would normally call, is often called the A pentatonic minor scale. It's actually the E shape. It's based around the shape of an F chord. This is an F chord. And here's the F shape of the pentatonic scale. And I'm going to put it on the screen so you can see it. For our jamming purposes, we're going to try and focus on just the top 3 or 4 strings because that cuts through better. So when you're just learning, try to focus on using the top 3 or 4 strings first until you gain full mastery of this concept. The second chord we're going to play is our 4 chord, and it's just basically based on an A bar position, and so it's called the A form. We're playing a D7 in this A shape, and it's like this. Okay, and here is what the pentatonic scale looks like played over that, and I'm going to put it on the screen for you. Here's the A form pentatonic. That's ending on the 5, here's the 1. Okay, and the other chord we're going to use, the 5 chord, is going to be an E7. We're playing it in this C kind of shape. And we're going to play the pentatonic in the C shape as well, in the same position. So here's the 1, E. Here's the C pentatonic, starting on the 5th fret. There's the 4, and this is the 5. Here's the 1. Okay, so those are the scales, and we're just going to focus on the top 4 strings. Let's just practice using a single riff. Okay. And I'm going to give you a backing track. You can just practice playing the patterns with that backing track, but I'm going to give you some riffs that you can play with to start with, and then I want you to practice the riffs over the backing track. So here's the first riff. This is in this E form, goes over our 1 chord, and this is our. That's what you would call your A pentatonic. It's actually pentatonic in the E form or E shape. And here's the first riff. Okay, and you can play around with the melody, with the rhythm of that, but that's the basic riff. So that goes to this. We're going to, in our backing track, we're going to make a quick change to the D7 on measure 2 of the 12 bar. And here's the A form pentatonic riff that we have for that. It's the same scale degrees, but now being played in the key of D instead of the key of A. Okay, so this is all one riff. We're just changing the key signature of the riff to give it a different sound. And that's one of the skills we want to learn. We want to develop that skill to recycle riffs into different keys, because similarity is a hook. So if you write a really good riff, if you can recycle a slightly varied version of that riff over different changes in your song, it creates an echoing sound or a melodic simile that your listener is going to find attractive. And that's a little thing you can listen for in blues. Listen for that with Kenny Burrell, Albert King, and you'll hear that over and over again. Okay, our last riff we're going to play. Okay, so here's the riff that's written in that C shape of the pentatonic. Okay, so it's going to be like this. Okay, and you can hear how those riffs are all related to one another. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play these riffs in an example for you to see how they work together. And then I want you to go to the backing track, take these riffs with you, practice using them over the backing track, change riff when the chord changes. And by the time you've done that through the song a couple of times, you're going to be playing over the changes with a new level of understanding and at least the beginnings of some confidence in how to use these ideas. And I'm going to come back and give you lots of other examples that you can practice with to get these chops and get these concepts into your fingers, because that's where they belong. The emphasis has to be on practicing this. Nobody really cares too much about learning the theory behind it. Everybody wants to know how to do it, and that's what I'm trying to emphasize today. So we're going to now go to an example, and I'm going to play these riffs for you and give you a little example, and then I'll give you a link to the backing track, and you can go ahead and just practice to your heart's content with the backing track. My name's Bonner, and I hope you'll come back and practice some more pentatonic riffs and playing over the changes with me again soon.